Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. This time again with a nice Rumi quote, where he writes, "Beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about." Well, what do you feel when you hear this quote?
Yeah, hearing this quote, feeling this quote, I feel this, it connects me with this sensation of kind of heart presence, how I would describe it, this warmth that can emanate from our body, the center of our chest. And this quote is such a helpful, in my opinion, antidote to much of the ways that we are conditioned to think about spirituality or religion or a relationship with the divine, which is being trained to judge ourselves, being trained to view things through this right and wrong narrative of actions. And my point of view is that much of this teaching, much of this training is very helpful as a preliminary step, as a preliminary stage, that we do want to be mindful of all of the many temptations of this world that get in our way, that block us from the divine, all the, quote, wrong things that can cause us to get swept up in separation, swept up in wanting, not wanting, pride, envy, disliking, aversion, ego, sin, so to speak, sin in the sense of separation, sin in the sense of what brings us further from the divine. But those are not the ultimate fruit of religion, of spirituality, of what all of these various traditions are talking about. And the ultimate fruit is beyond words, it's beyond ideas, it's beyond concepts, and it's beyond trying to follow a formula and go through with actions. All of these different teachings, or at least the ultimate teachings within these traditions, point us toward the presence of the divine, point us towards something that ultimately we are not doing, we are not creating, but we are communing with or abiding within. And that's what this quote conjures up or points to, is this resting of the soul in something that we could never produce on our own, connecting with our true nature and the light that is within all of us. And that presence, that feel, that experience, and that letting go and kind of releasing into is the most nourishing and fruitful non-activity that we can connect with, even in really, really tiny, brief moments, even if there's space between, even if we come to it and lose sight of it and come back. This is the fountain. This is the source. How do you feel about this quote? What feelings does it give you?
Thank you for sharing. And for me, it feels like I feel understood when I hear that, because it's based on the idea of not judging whether right or wrong. And I often feel that like letting go of the judgments you have about what's happening around you frees yourself up to experience the world in a different light, and also restore the level of agency you have when you react to things that happen. If you look through the world through a lens of desire, and then things don't turn out the way you want them to turn out, because maybe it's more pleasurable in the moment, or maybe it would be exactly the perfect time for that, but it doesn't happen because of things that are outside our control, don't work out the way we wish them to work out. I feel when I'm still in that desire and say, oh, this is shit, that it doesn't work out like I want, and then it narrows me down. But whenever I connect to not judging whatever happens, not minding what happens, then this frees myself up to be present and to experience in a way which is more free and loving and kind towards me, towards other people. And I feel understood when I hear that quote. I'll meet you there, he says, beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. And that's why I asked you, how do you feel about it? Because when the world is too full to talk about, maybe there's too much chatter going on. So how do you lie your soul down in the grass when you need relaxation? Or how do you drown out the noise of the world around you?
For me, this points to a different way of being, even in the midst of whatever else is going on. And so, even in the midst of our thoughts, even in the midst of the noise, even in the midst of various causes and conditions, maybe different states in our physical energy, maybe different things that we are up to or places that we are at, this is our relationship with the now. This is our relationship with reality. This is our view and our direct experience of the fact that all that we see, all that we take in with our senses, all that we know intellectually or with thought, all that we feel is in some way constituted and manifested from the light, the divine light, this drop of awareness that is the same within all of us, within you, within me, within every conscious being. All of the world is manifested and created in each moment of consciousness, of awareness, the things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we touch. In some ways, this all has the same essence, and the same essence that creates my whole world right here is the exact same essence that creates your whole world right there. And connecting with the essence that is beyond or within all of the forms that arise in our life can connect us to the intrinsic qualities of this awareness, of this light. And they rhyme in, once again, all of the mystics that have talked about this for thousands of years, that have never heard of each other, that didn't speak each other's languages, that didn't read what each other wrote. Somehow they all found that, oh, the fundamental qualities of our true nature, the fundamental qualities of the divine that we can tap into directly, they include peace, they include love, they include this feeling of infinite capacity. They include this feeling of light, in the sense that what causes us to be awake, what causes us to be aware, is the same thing that that makes all of this up. It's sort of the one true nature of reality. In tapping into this, and connecting with this, and trying to embody this, is something that, at least on my path, I feel, I lose, I feel, I lose, I have sight of, I lose sight of, I get caught up. Some of these right and wrongs of the relative world can absolutely get in the way of our view and our direct experience of this at times. But this is something that is fundamentally constant, always there for us to return to come back to let go. So it's not a doing and a thing that we create within ourselves. It's not a state that we try to conjure up or manifest or bring momentum toward until we're finally all the way up here, like energy or something like this. But rather, this is something that we let go, we drop, and we release the barriers, including barriers in our way of being, in our stance, in our posture within our minds, until we let go into accessing and connecting with what is always already there. These extremely subtle but divine characteristics of our true nature, of the essence of our being, and the divine light that is always making up our entire reality. We are never actually separate from it. It is never actually away from us. The divine presence is always already here, and it's always something that there's always this fountain available for us to drink from for free. It's a kind of a free gift or a grace that we are given, but we do have to give ourselves to it, is kind of my experience of it. If I'm trying to force it, if I'm trying to effort it, if I'm trying to create it, if I'm trying to plan and do and force and effort, then I get in my own way and I'm leaning on my own strength, where we're actually called to have this faith and this trust in this realization that there is nothing that I can do that can have the same fruits as this essence that is always already here available for me to simply just accept with an open palm or an open heart or an open mind. This is the difference between planning and efforting versus spontaneity and accepting grace, which is ultimately where we can drink from this subtle but very real, always available divine presence that constitutes our whole existence. How do you feel about this difference between this trust or this faith versus this stance of trying to control and manipulate and this good and this bad and this imposing our ideas on reality versus dropping back into the ultimate reality that's already here?
I love the image of you can drink from the divine presence because it implies it may be a fountain, it may be a source of energy, of potential, of everything you choose to create in your life. And I also like the image if it's a source and then you can just tap into it and you never lose the thing you're looking for. Whereas if you force yourself or if you desire too much, you create this excess potential of there is something which is unrealized and you want to dig the riverbed, but the river doesn't flow because maybe you blocked it, because you're not tapping into the source to really fill it up. So for me, trying to force it is like creating the barrier between you and the source, but preparing yourself for any path which may reveal itself to you as you go it. And then tapping into the source and you have removed the barrier so you can flow actually. And the more you let go, the more you flow. And at least that's what I experience in my life. If I'm high on judging other people, or if like my judgment is like always there and then this is wrong, then I miss out on so many options of viewing it from a different light. And then therefore I lose the optionality of really acting in a different way. So I limit myself and I narrow in the way I go through the world. And that's the relationship between forcing it and just flowing with it. It's like a source.
And the same when you judge yourself. The same when you judge yourself, you cut yourself off from the flow. This judging the outside leads to this judging the inside. Judging ourselves leads to judging things in the world. This is our stance in terms of how are we relating to reality. Are we relating to reality in terms of something that we have to have a tight grip on, that we have to change and control and try to do and try to use our whole struggle against it? Or are we relaxing and flowing with events and accepting that this is always going to be outside of my control? And the question is if I'm just going to tense up and get thrashed around, or if I will be supple and kind of move with it and allow it to move me and move things around me.
And then, moving and the things around you move as well. And then also kind of, you can use the metaphor of a frequency, because Nikola Tesla also said, okay, to understand the universe, think in terms of energy and frequency. Now we think in terms of energy of sources and sinks. That's what you do in electrical engineering as well, with fields as well. And Rumi writes about, there is a field, I will meet you there. And then we can take the metaphor and try to build a model around it. And let's say this field is a source, and if we tap into it, then we can drink from it, we can replenish our energy with it. And there's also other maybe things that vibrate around us, like a pendulum. And like it may be a, a relationship, it may be another person, it may also be an extreme ideology, which has a certain kind of frequency, and you also vibrate through the world in a certain kind of frequency. So now it depends on whether you lose your energy or you can generate your energy, how you feel in the world. If you generate your energy, you feel great and awake. But if you constantly lose your energy to things that actually don't matter into your life just because the things surround you and you don't drown out the noise, for example, scrolling on X, formerly Twitter, and seeing all the political stuff, it drowns my energy. It is like this kind of certain kind of frequency which resonates, and I resonate with it if I just mindlessly follow it and scroll with it and be and react to the things that I read. I lose my energy with that. But if I actually don't mind what happens and get into a place of not judging whether it's like good for the world or bad for the world or good for me or bad for me, then I don't lose my energy because I just let go. And so the thing that has its vibrations, that is like a pendulum which feeds off of the energy you give to it,
Mm-hmm.
cannot access the energy I have. So this is a beautiful metaphor, in my opinion, for um, judgment, which you let go, also preserves the energy you have.
Mm. Yeah, and there is an insecurity of this non-thought, and I think this is a part of why in my journey it was so counterintuitive and just really an uphill. It was just not natural for me to integrate these things, to learn these things, to just to accept and to let go of my kind of clenched fist of this is my identity, this is my plans, these are my ideas, these are my beliefs, these are the rigid, static labels that I have put on my way of understanding these, my way of relating to the aspects of reality. And words are not reality. Words are labels that we put on things, but the map is not the territory. The menu is not the meal. And the words that we tend to label on things when we try to have a story or a narrative around a belief, they are sometimes they can point us toward things or remind us of things that are very useful for sure. Obviously, we're having this conversation with words. We're not just sitting here. However, we should remember that when we are trying to go explore a new land, we're not there to just sit on a place and just look at the map more and more. We are actually meant to walk around, to explore, to connect with it directly, not intermediated by concepts and ideas. But there's an insecurity to this. There is a way that if I'm not defining myself, if I'm not repeating a story to myself, then do I really have this gripped in my hand? Am I holding on to it? Am I controlling it? And and this letting go is it's kind of a radical shift of our relationship with these things, our relationship with the divine, our relationship with reality. We're going from what is static, what is in place, what I can control, what I can predict, what I can have words that never have to change, versus dynamism. There is an insecurity in being versus identifying. But what is so important to remember, what is just what matters is how this shows up. How does this change our way of being? What is the fruit of this way versus this way? And I can say from a lot of experience trying both ways and a lot of experience looking at other people who are trying one way versus another, it does feel clear that what these teachers are saying is true, in the sense of when we trust the flow, when we connect directly with the divine, when we are not holding on so tight to our ideas and our own efforts and our own strengths, but rather accepting that there is a power greater than us, but that we can connect with if we have the faith to trust in a reality that moves outside of our control and to not try to hold on. the fruits of this are so much greater. The fruits of a conversation, an interaction, a connection that I have with somebody where I have no agenda, no plan. There's nothing that I want to happen. There's nothing that I don't want to happen. And I'm just being right here and flowing with whatever happens and not needing it to arrive in anywhere. I show up as the best version of myself then. Whereas if I already told myself the lines that I want to say, the questions that I want to ask, I'm already trying to arrive at a preconceived destination in this interaction with whether it's a human, whether it's a day, whether it's a project, whatever, I show up completely differently. And the divine intuition that all of us have within us, our awareness, our capacity for flow, the fruits of this are so much greater. And this is ultimately the test of any spiritual practice, any spiritual posture or relationship with God or with the light within us is, what is the fruit? Is it bearing good fruit? Is it bearing bad fruit? When I try this, does it bear good fruit? When I try this, does it bear bad fruit? And fortunately, no matter what we try to do, we will get to see these experiments, because I am going to be extremely imperfect about this today and tomorrow and the next day. And so I'll see what happens when I show up this way. I'll see what happens when I show up this way, because I don't have perfect balance. I've not stabilized any of this, but I have fortunately been able to see over and over what happens when I see clearly, what happens when I have faith, what happens when I have trust, versus what happens when I live from a place of fear and contraction and trying to control and trying to manipulate, and this craving and aversion that is so conditioned in us by our culture.
Yeah, it reminds me of Carl Gustav Jung. If you make the unconscious conscious, it will, otherwise it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But if you will make it conscious, then you can actually have influence over the things that happen. So you are conscious about the way you experience the world, whether from faith or from contraction, from a deep trust into the light from within, or the field, or the source, or God, or the divine, however we may call it, or the sublime even. Something that every human in some ways feels, like when the feeling of awe is present, for example. There's something greater than us. But to put it in words would do it no, it's too little. You cannot put it into words because it is formless, and all form comes from it, but you cannot form it into a form because it's formless. So it is something which we don't necessarily get, but know it is whole. It is good if we at least are open to this kind of experiences and not closed down. And I also think that it's a matter of a life you can choose to live to a level which is more full. Because if you just have these stories in your head which identify you with a certain kind of person, and it narrows you down. And the risk is that you prematurely optimize for only one criterion, that you want to please whoever you want to please. May it be your parents, may it be a person that you admire, may it be society as a whole, which puts these identity layers on top and expectations on top of our lives. But the possibility is, if you really tap into the connection with what you feel is there, the connection with what you feel makes you come alive, then you have a whole set of parameters which are more healthy to and enable you to live an even better life than you would just be able to live if you prematurely optimize, for example, for money. If you live a life which is purely directed towards, oh, I want to make the most amount of money anybody can, it comes at a high price, probably at the cost of the relationships you have, probably at the cost of your health, probably at the cost of your mental health as well, probably. But if you try to open yourself up, you feel, oh, actually what is important in my life is the relationships with the people which surround me. It is working in a great team where there's a high level of trust, and I do my best to foster that trusting environment as well. It is taking yourself time to connect maybe with yourself, to connect with the greater whole and experience your spirituality. And if you don't judge prematurely, if you don't buy into a narrative prematurely, you have a better optionality of really feeling what is healthy and good for your own life. And you have to judge. You are the architect of your life. You choose which narratives and which stories are maybe helpful and serving to improve your life. And you choose also which narratives to dismiss. And is all at your own risk. And you can choose. You are the agent of your life. You can create whatever you want out of it and be open to whatever happens and form that.
And ironically, an attachment to money can be one of the most limiting factors, even in wealth creation, because it can prevent us from a capacity to flow with reality. It can prevent us from a capacity to take good risks. It can prevent us from being an authentic leader because it draws us into viewing aspects and even humans as means to an end rather than an end in and of themselves, because we're prizing this material gain or this material not loss over the spontaneous flow of this moment, over a trust and a faith in the unfolding of reality. And just to share a few, yeah, no doubt.
That's
And just to share a few words, this is a real interest of mine, is because my whole life I've found the most inspiration and the most guidance from Jesus as a spiritual teacher, as a presence of the divine on earth. And recently I've begun to get very interested in the exact words that he used and what he actually meant when he taught things. And so to share a few of them, when he uses the word for God or the Father, it is the Aramaic word Allah, and oftentimes this word in English, God, conjures this image of a human anthropomorphized thing sitting on a throne in a physical place. But the actual word Allah conjures a meaning that is more like the mothering, fathering source of all divine creation and unfolding at all times in the now. And
mm,
this shift in our relationship with what does God mean? Is it something that is far away? Is it something that I can't access and it's even pretentious to act like I can feel or access? Or which divides us from God, which prevents us from recognizing God that is actually before us? Or is God always everywhere, constituting all of reality? Same with the kingdom of heaven. Is the the Aramaic word that Jesus used for the kingdom of heaven is Malkuta Dashmaya, and this does not mean a white cloudy place with a physical realm that is outside of this reality, that is sort of nothing to us now except for an image and something for us to want and crave and try to control and fear not being at or whatever. But the actual truth is the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now. The kingdom of heaven is meant for something for us to enter. And he uses that word all the time. If you do not have a mind like a child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And it is something that is already here for us to, once again, not for us to do, not for us to force, not for us to earn, not for us to struggle and effort until we fight our way in. This is something for us to let go of, to stop getting in the way of, until we can actually accept this free gift and to drink of this fruit. And the last Aramaic word that I would love to share is ruha, or ruha the kudsha. This is the word for that's translated into Greek and then translated into English as the Holy Spirit. And for much of my life, I experienced this as some abstract concept, this thing that theoretically is there, but I don't really. It's too much, and it's supposed to be within, but we don't really talk about how it shows up or whatever. But the truth is that this ruha dukucha, or the breath of the Holy One, this is that essence that constitutes our reality in all moments. This is how all arising, all creation that exists and manifests in every moment of our reality, of every moment of conscious being, is created and constituted of the divine light. The same breath that is within me is within you, and this is why I love this significance of breath of the Holy One. When I breathe, you breathe. And so we can all be in a room. This air comes in my lungs, out of my lungs, into your lungs, out of your lungs. This air, this constant field is something that we share. There is not a separation where I have my breath and you have your breath over there. Never the two shall meet. This is always already flowing inter between all of us as this field of creation in the world. And so these meanings and significances of the original teachings that he gave point us more and more toward this. And of course, there's these other traditions, or these other mystics. It's not to say that there's not other ways of talking about this, but I just find such clarity and such connection in the significance of the divine is already here. It's already accessible to us. It's here for us to be with and to commune with, free of the things that we do to divide and separate ourselves from it. And this is something that we can practice. This is a fountain that we can drink of. This is never something that we can effort or create or do. This is something for us to receive. And that is a way of being that is, of course, going to, for me at least, this comes and goes. And this feeling of faith, this feeling of trust, and this, in order that we can let go of our defenses, let go of our barriers, let go of our rigidity, and allow ourselves to flow with all of this movement and dynamic creation in every moment. This is how we can access flow, and this flow, and how we can access peace. And these can enable us to move through the world in a totally different way. And we're meant to see the fruit, and we're meant to see that, is this bearing fruit? Is this actually delivering the goods? Is this actually what divine connection feels like, or how it shows up? And this, I believe, is how we can bring our awareness to see or feel whether or not we are on the right path, whether or not we are truly connecting from a place of sincerity and authenticity in our lives. And once again, not doing, not creating, not efforting, but receiving a free gift of grace, accepting
Mm.
and laying down our soul in this divine field. And that is the path, I think, for us to accept and return to on this human journey in these little primates that we find ourselves in.
And it seems like the original meanings of the teachings of the Aramaic Jesus somehow seem to got lost in translation and in narratives and stories about how to form a church. What can we talk to? What can we tell the citizens, and what can we tell the people who should participate in our church? It is also lost in translation, maybe because of power plays and power dynamics. But it seems to me that his original teachings more and more point towards connection with, with the relationship with ourselves and with the world and with the divine. And if you only believe then that heaven is in eternity, which only comes after death, then maybe it is a too narrow kind of interpretation of what the original meaning of it was, that it is accessible right here, right now, at every moment. And then if you add this perspective to viewing, to seeing the teachings of Jesus, I think it is richer, because you can access heaven right here, right now. You don't have to wait until you are dead to come into a cloudy firmament filled with skies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And even
the
Jesus's word for eternity does not mean, Jesus's word for eternity does not actually mean an everlasting time in the future. Like,
yeah.
actually, it means the timeless time of right now, when we step outside of past, present, future, relative time into the absolute. The reality is that we're never actually out of eternity, and we are sometimes out of the view, but never actually separate from this. And uh,
Mhm.
another note that just to mention is we asked God, or at least in the Judeo-Christian tradition, we asked God who He was, and He said, "I am." And then we double clicked and said, "Really? What? Give me some name." And He said, "I am that I am." This is
Mhm.
the essence of our being. This is all of reality in every moment. This is never apart from us, and this is something that, on our end, it is not a creating, not a doing. It is a dropping and a letting go, and a communing with, and an abiding within. And that is my intention for this week, to very imperfectly, and off and on, and with all the limitations of my psychology and cause and effect and whatever. But this is just such an encouraging gift that we are given, such an opportunity in this life to be able to connect with this, to rejoin it, and to come back again and again, to enter the kingdom of heaven, the Malkuta Dashmaya, and experience this dynamic flow of creation that we are intertwined with, and ultimately that is our true nature and the essence of our being.
I love how all the mystics, all the great mystics, may it be Jesus or Rumi or whoever came before or after, point towards the timelessness of time. Their teachings are as
Yeah.
well timeless,
Yes.
and they all point to the power of now, where we have this moment right here, right now, where we can dive into and connect with the source, which we can generate energy from,
Yes.
and find a connection to our inspiration, to our gut feelings, to our heart connection, to our mind and heart mind, like you talked about in the beginning. And this is also pointing towards the potential it can have in business if you transcend the usual narratives of, oh, you have to only measure things and you have to only optimize for some key metrics. It is maybe a view which is too narrow, but if you open up with that and open up to the inspiration, intuition, and the gut feelings you have, and then you can form a connection, for example, with that lovely doggo boy, even in a team or even in a business. Jeff Bezos said that all the great decisions that were made in the business have been decisions made out of intuition and made out of guts, made with guts and intuition, and that is only possible if you if you connect with what makes you come alive, connect with the source, or drown the noise out of the world, but really trust that you know what is right for the best next step for yourself, because you are connected to your intuition and to your whole being as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this trust of the intuition, this trust of awareness, this trust and flow, this requires us to prize this and to trust this even over and above our narratives, over and above our stories and our words and our attempts to control.
What a great note to end this podcast. Join some friends
Agreed.
over here and over there.
I love these friends. Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts, man. It's so cool to kind of swim and dive in these waters. This is something that is the ultimate project of our existence. To find our true nature, to connect with divinity, to and to allow it to flow through us and to flow through our real embodied actions, our real emotions, our real struggles, our real difficulties, our real limitations, and our real creations in this world. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. This was a
Thank
joy,
you. Thank
and
you.
I wish you a wonderful week, my friend.
It was a pleasure, as always. Appreciate you. And the more we let go, the more we flow. And
Yes,
we can experience the sunset to the amount we give ourselves to it, like you said. Let's go and do
yes.
that. See you next week, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. I will see you next week.
Bye.